Hello and most welcome to 876 of the 8th series. We will today continue with Francis Lin's article, The Impossibility of Following a Rule Only Once. Last time we took a careful look into the first and second person case and how they look differently. When we explain what somebody says or is presumed to think, that will participate in a different language game than if, in the case, we are the first person in terms of an I that do the things. We are re-entering through the skin into the world directly. And that is, one could almost say, a more primary language game. It is not absolutely Wittgensteinian correct, but it is in that region, definitely. The language game of the first person and the third person are absolutely different. The things that are said in the third person case do not originate in any sense in the first person experience, or whatever you would call that. I don't even have words for it. That is the misconception confounding first person and second person that leads to the confusion. And we also added, when I point out red, I do two things at one go. And the second thing here, we usually forget. And that is that there is a pointing to the rest of the world and saying, those things are not red. Most often, that is forgotten. And it goes to show how much more complexity it's inside of words. It is not all that simple. And I continue on page 146. And this is exactly the positively and negatively that we're into now. The above point is referring to just that. The above point can be easily missed or misunderstood if we do not think about the issue carefully. When encountering this issue, our first reaction may well be this: the nature of color itself. For instance, red corresponds to light with a predominant wavelength of roughly 620 to 740 nanometers. Determines that this object is red, and that object is not red. So I can meaningfully call the rose in front of me red only once in my life. And that is an sorry. But we must ponder over this. True, when I look at the rose, it has a certain impact on my retina. And I have a certain visual sensation. But is this single sensation sufficient to establish the meaning of red? Why can't it be the sensation of color or round or beauty or whatnot? In order for red to have the meaning it has, I must know that I am talking about the sensation I get when looking at a rose, not the one I get when looking at an emerald or an iron ball, etc. In other words, I must not just apply red only once in my life. This is a matter of logic or grammar. We have just discussed the first person case from my viewpoint. The conclusion is also true from another's viewpoint. If a person, not I, only once in his lifetime applied red to an object, he could not be said to know the meaning of red. In order for him to know the meaning of red, to know that he follows the rule for red, he must have applied red to other objects negatively. He cannot have just applied red only once. Very clear. What is true of following the rule for red is also true of following a rule in general. To say that my action of attributing red to an object is following the rule, I must attribute red negatively to other objects. Otherwise, it would not make sense to say that there is a rule for red here. And hence, it would not make sense to say that I am following the rule. I think that all this is plain truth. Any competent speaker would assent to it. Thus, the not one person once remark is a genuine grammatical remark concerning the use of the expression to follow a rule. It describes a necessary condition rule, specifying a condition that must be satisfied if the expression to follow a rule is to have a meaning, to make sense.
Sense.
Hence. Yeah. It is of the same type as the remark N. Both being remarks of the use of a certain word expression which everyone would assent to after thinking over the issues carefully. In MS 124, Wittgenstein talks of a creature on Mars walking parallel to something like a signpost. If on Mars observed a creature who looks at a signpost-like object and then walks parallel to it, I would not be justified to say that he is following it, even if I know all about his current feelings. But surely he must know whether he is following it, not by introspection. One cannot follow a rule once. This example is similar to the one of saying red when pointing to an object. If the creature walks parallel to the signpost-like object only once, then not only I, but also he himself will not know whether he is following it. But unfortunately, Wittgenstein does not explain why this is so. I hope that my explanation fills the bill. The bill. Even a duck has a bill. My explanation of this is supported by some remarks Wittgenstein made at the end of 1929 and the beginning of 1930. The statements describing for me the length of an object form a system of propositions. Now it is such an entire system of propositions that is compared with reality, not a single proposition. If I say, for example, that this or that point in the visual field is blue, then I know not merely that, but also that this point is not green. Nor red, nor yellow, etc. I have laid the entire colorscape against it at one go. This is also the reason why a point cannot have different colors at the same time. All this I did not yet know when I was writing my book. At the time, I thought that all inference was based on tautological form. At that time, I had not yet seen that an inference can also have the form. This man is 2 meters tall. Therefore, he is not 3 meters tall. This is connected with the fact that I believe that elementary propositions must be independent of one another, that you could not infer the non-existence of one state of affairs from the existence of another. I had the idea that elementary propositions must be independent of one another. A complete description of the world would be a product of elementary propositions, as it were, these being partly positive and partly negative. In holding this, I was wrong. And that couldn't be a more excellent point than putting a pause. Well, there's great enjoyment, I would say. That's why you need to bear with the text, because when the understanding comes, it's sheer joy. Do remember also for Wittgenstein himself, this understanding took him 40 years, 30, 40 years. It was only at the very end of his life that he came to this slowly worked out understanding. It needs to be pondered again and again. And I'd say even the body needs to be changed. We need to open up, letting our orifices exiting, re-entering. We do not disappear by that. We become much more resilient. Think about the strange attractor, the strongest force in the entire universe. Nothing can beat it. As a very good point here, very helpful at the very beginning of the first paragraph we read, the last one on page 146, if you may. If it was atomistic, if every proposition or saying or observation didn't have a connection to everything else, then looking at a rose and our retina, or retina, I think it is, our retina receives, as it's stated here, somewhere in between 620 and 740 nanometers. Then we have red. And then you can meaningfully only call the rose in front of me red only once in my life. Even in this technological high-tech world, a rule is needed, still needed. And it has not so much to do with the frequency of the light. Yes, it's part of it, but the establishment of the rule is something that takes time, not one time. Because we exclude other things when we say something. something that has been pointed out earlier by Martin Heidegger. When something is revealed, something else gets covered. That is the process of becoming. The very process of understanding, if you like. We are actually talking about the whole world. Could you go, please, to page 147? And we go down to line 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 7. I will not read the whole because we are soon wrapping up here. It's going to be an A part. So I start mid-sentence. He must have applied red to other objects negatively. That's the key word. He cannot have just applied red only once. So it's more than once, both in a temporal aspect and a spatial aspect. Over the whole spectrum, if you like. You need red, but also green, yellow. What is negatively, it's still participatory. It's what gives it its meaning. Carlo Rovelli, the relations of everything in the universe take part even in such a simple saying, this is red. It is participatory in the most simple sentence proposition. Go to the last page we read, 148. Two good ones here. The last one in the first statement, last one. This is also the reason why a point cannot have different colors at the same time. It's not a physical thing. It is a logical, grammatical thing. And then we go to the second quote here, second part of the quote, sorry. Second part of the quote, fourth line. And here is a realization that even such a metric thing, like kilometric force, all those things that we hold for being able to be atomistic or could be atomistic, are not. So when I say this man is 2 meters tall, therefore he's not 3 meters tall or 1.5 or 1.25 and so forth. It is participatory still. And I like what we mentioned in last when we had this nice article by Moore. The triangulation is inside and outside at the same time. It crosses the border between definition and physicality as to make both of them stronger. Kalle, please come in here. Most welcome.
Thank you. So this phrase, one cannot follow rule once, from MS 124, it would be described by this phrase about negatively. One cannot, when I say something is red, I also say I must attribute red negative to other objects.
Oh, yeah.
I think that is Len's explanation to that phrase of Wittgenstein. But I wonder if it's not too easy explanation, or
I think my hint here, and this is what I would say, you will see it's not that easy to understand, but it's a very good start. It's a very good start. What is mentioned by negatively, it's going to be much more complex when we come into meters, lengths, kilos. There we will start to lose the idea that Hans weighing 78 kilos is not something separate.
So in that case, let's say one cannot follow rule once here if you go to this remark about the two. So let's say that this man is 2 meters tall. That is one rule, and then comes rule 2. Is it what you mean?
Yeah, there are sort of, yeah, you could say that. It's a way of understanding it. That there are two rules going on
at the same time.
You can also say that there is an interior and an exterior. And the exterior in this case is all the lengths he's not, so to speak. 3, 3.1, 3.2, 2.9, and so forth. And the interior is 2 meters.
And let's see about the example with Mars. I think that is both. And so you have a person walking, a creature walking on Mars. Could you paraphrase it? What do you think? What is he speaking about? Say that you have an alien there, and then he sees. Let's say he sees a chair.
Yeah, I think the helpful thing here, it's a creature, it's not a human being, it's something else. And we see it from a distance, and we see the creature walking parallel to signposts. We would not think that there is something inner in the terms of private language going on here. He knows whether he's following it. The rule of following signposts is embedded in the signposts themselves, how they were put there. In the same way, I am following the tracks of the motorway because it's built that way. So the rules cannot be said to be inside, neither are they completely exterior.
Okay, I agree with this as so far when you have a human being. But let's say a lion. Lion cannot follow our rules. And I think this also applies to our alien.
I would say that, yeah, it's a good, yeah, very good. A lion wouldn't do that. He wouldn't follow the signposts.
He would not care. I think alien would not do that either, because what would he know about? A lion would not care if you have let's say a traffic light showing.
No, he doesn't care at all. He just roars.
So I don't know. So does Wittgenstein? No, he would probably ignore it. We would perhaps ignore. Let's say you go to a forest, you see a lot of trees. You would ignore most of them. You would avoid them. In that way, also a lion would ignore traffic. He wouldn't even understand the. He would only pass through it, or pass along.
Yeah, definitely. He would probably eat the pedestrians.
But he's following a rule, the lion. Let's say that he ignores the traffic light. Last we would ignore also the trees in a forest. We would only pass along them. So there is a lot of rules you follow. And
they're rule following. He ignores trees. Yeah, he doesn't walk into them. Yeah, that's a sort of very good point there, Kalle. That is actually sort of primitive rule following. Yeah. He doesn't walk into trees, or maybe a lion. Well, I think they climb trees, but it's a good point. An elephant wouldn't climb a tree. That's a sort of rule following, yeah, in a way.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Very
Okay,
good, Kalle. That's
I think
excellent point. Excellent point.
I think actually for the first time today, this Wittgenstein's point, I began to understand it at least.
Me
much.
too.
So it's a great
It's
point
opening.
today.
I'm smiling here. It makes happiness. Humor helps actually with Wittgenstein because
Absolutely.
it's a relief once the understanding slowly gets there. And remember, Wittgenstein took him 40, 50 years. But we will come to that next 1877 or something like that. We will see how the Tractarian Wittgenstein was quite different. He was more like I was before.
Okay, let's end there.
Why, thank you very much. Excellent point. We're progressing to the understanding. It feels fantastic. Thank you, Kalle Lundahl. Thank you, everyone, for joining in. It was a sheer pleasure. Have a pleasant morning, day, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you.